about 20 years ago, not quite, she was what you are today. Okay, so she graduated with an international business degree with her language being German. And, you know, back then my specialty was German for business and economics. So Corinne and I spent a lot of time together. She passed a very prestigious test with the German Chamber for you know, business in German. And Corinne was a good student, a very good student mostly, but I had to yell at her a lot. Okay, so she was just like you are today. And if you're sitting there sometimes wondering what you want to do with your life, what might work or not work, or you think, hey, I'm not really sure what I want to do, it's all normal. So Corinne has her story, and it's a great story, it's a fun story, but it's also something where you should really listen. And many of you are coming to lunch with us, so Corinne will do her talk, and then afterwards, if you have any questions, she's open to ask her whatever, and she will answer because she's real German by now. Please help me welcome Corinne Zimmerman.
Hi, good morning. Thanks for having me here today. I'm going to spend the next 45 minutes or so. I want to share with you guys my story, and I understand that everybody has a different path and a different journey to take. So I'm not an expert, but I hope that something about my story may resonate with you, may help you along your way, and I'd like for it to be as casual as possible. So feel free to stop me, raise your hand, yell, hey, I have a question, this doesn't make sense. I tend to talk really fast when I'm nervous, like talking in front of a bunch of students. So if I'm talking too fast, just somebody go, do this. Especially if you're not a native English speaker, I understand. So it's something I have to be very conscious of and try to slow down. So I'm just going to spend some time telling you about how I got to where I am and see if any of it makes any sense for you guys. So as you see, I'm a graduate of Auburn University, class of '98, German International Trade. So where did it begin? I was born and raised in the Redneck Riviera. Some of you guys might know Pensacola, Florida. Anybody from there? Okay. It's a booming international metropolis. You guys all know that, right? Okay, lots of international businesses. Not really. So the Navy is there. But I kind of grew up with this passion for international, and I went to an international high school called International Baccalaureate, or IB. And International Baccalaureate was originally founded for diplomats' children. And the concept, it was founded in Geneva, Switzerland, and the concept was to make sure that their children could have a consistent education all around the world. Well, over the years it has evolved, and it's become more and more of a program for magnet or college preparatory. But one of the fundamental things about the program is you have to pick a language before you go into this school. You have to study a foreign language for the whole time you're there, which, as many of you guys know, that's not a common thing in high schools in America. So they said, what do you want to study? German, French, Italian, Spanish? I don't know. What do I want to study? Well, my last name, Zimmerman, is a very German name. It's like Smith in Germany. But more importantly, when I was 9, we had a German exchange student. And his name was Jens. And he was 16. And he was tall, dark, and handsome. And he came with German chocolates, too. So I had a definite affinity right away for Germany. So I said, okay, I'll study German for 4 years. So after 4 years of studying German at International Baccalaureate in Pensacola, I am fortunate enough, lucky enough to get accepted at Auburn University. Okay, so I come up to Auburn University. Who here is a freshman or sophomore? Who here knows what they want to do for the rest of their life? Well, what do you want to do?
Be a photographer, like for news or newspapers.
Oh, very cool. He said he wants to be a photographer for newspapers. I wish I was like you when I was 19 and 20 years old. I, on the other hand, like a lot of other people in this room probably, did not want to know what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And as you guys know, you have to pick a major because you have to graduate on time. And so I was getting a lot of pressure from my advisor. You need to decide, Corinne, you need to decide. I'm getting into the end of my sophomore year, and I'm getting so much pressure. What do you want to do, Corinne, for the rest of your life? I don't know, but I don't want to study anymore. And they say, so my advisor said magic words. She said, you have so much credit from German, from high school. If you do something with German, you might be able to graduate early. Ding, ding, ding. Sold. So I started to think German, I could teach, who knows. So I started thinking about teaching. I definitely don't have the patience for that. Anna Gromberg was my professor at the time. I got the best years of Anna Gromberg. And she said, Corinne, you should do business. You should try German business. We've got this new international trade program. I think you really like it. Okay, that sounds like a good idea. So I study international trade for the next 2 years. I get my Prüfung Wirtschaftsdeutsch International diploma, and I graduate from Auburn University. Now what? No clue. So for the first time in my life, I'm jobless. I've been working since I'm 13 years old. It's doing something. And my resume at this point consists of, I speak German, I have my degree from Auburn, and I deliver pizza for Papa John's Pizza, the one up on College Drive, yeah? And I get married at this point. I get married very young. And my now ex-husband was very clever. He got a degree in information technology, which 20 years ago was the thing. I mean, we were just getting email, we were just getting internet. We still had the dial-up. Does anybody remember? You guys are probably too young for the dial-up. Okay, painful, yeah? So he has his degree, and right away he gets a job. He gets snagged right out of college. So they move us to Atlanta for his job. So I get to Atlanta, I'm jobless, I have this really pathetic resume, and I think, cool, I'm not gonna work. I'm gonna be one of those housewives sitting at home. That lasted for about 2 weeks. I'm like, okay, this isn't working. So I decided to volunteer at Ronald McDonald House in Atlanta. And what was great about Ronald McDonald House is local companies come and volunteer and cook dinners, and they donate things, and they donate money. And so very international businesses are frequently at the house. And like I said, back then, I think Monster.com was just starting. But like finding out about international businesses or finding out about companies was a slow and painful process. We were still looking for jobs in the newspaper, okay? And now at this point, I now had all these executives and people from companies coming into my house, into where I was working and volunteering. And I got to know a lot about different businesses and opportunities in Atlanta. But what really changed probably my whole future and my whole life was the director of the house, Linda Morris, says to me, Corinne, what do you want to do with the rest of your life? Once again, I don't know. She says, well, tell me, what do you think? I said, I speak German, and I have a German degree. She goes, give me your resume. I know some people at Porsche Cars North America. I'll see what I can do. 2 weeks later, I get a call from the assistant to the president of Porsche North America. I'm so excited. I'm 22 years old. Porsche's calling me. So I go and I interview, and I swear, my interview was 3 questions. The first one was, so you speak German? Yeah, I speak German. No, but do you really understand them? Yeah, no, I understand German really well. No, but do you understand them? Right? And it started to become clear what was going on. So a little bit of background. Porsche North America at that point had just moved from Reno, Nevada to Atlanta. And in Reno, they were very disconnected from what we would call the mothership, from headquarters in Germany. And so they were run by American management. So they didn't have to report so directly to the German company. But Germany was trying to reel them in and bring them back into the fold. And so they now moved their offices to Atlanta. They were trying to staff up. They had lost a lot of people in the move. And now these executives are having to interact with Germany a lot more. They're flying back and forth all the time. They're going to these meetings. And at this point, my suspicion was they're having some cultural problems. They're having some conflicts, yeah? So the gentleman says, can you come back tomorrow for a second interview? Absolutely. The second interview I come back for, same 3 questions. And at the end of the interview, the guy says, can you start Monday? Over the moon. I got hired with basically a very pathetic resume, but I spoke German and I somehow understand the culture and the people. So I started Porsche North America as an inventory coordinator. This is somebody who is responsible for using an AS400 system to import the cars from Germany. So physically ordering and saying, we want this many black ones with this many white interior or yellow interior, et cetera, et cetera. And does anybody know what AS400 is? Okay. Did anybody see the movie War Games? Black screen, green, you know what I'm talking about. Okay, this is an old system. Even then, this is an old system. But while I'm in it and while I'm playing around with it, I find the customer database. And I realize that I'm one of the only people that has access to this system in a while. And I'm thinking to myself, this must be really valuable. This is all of Porsche's customer information. And I realize that the data is being regularly updated. So it's connected to the car dealers around the United States and Canada. So I go to the marketing department and I say, do you guys know that there's this huge customer database? And like I said, they've transitioned from Reno to Atlanta. and there was a loss of information in that transfer. So they didn't know what had happened, that they had this information. And they said, oh, that's really cool. Could you play around with it and learn some more? So I reach out to the guy in Reno, I start documenting, I start learning about what this system really is, and I become kind of an in-house expert on our customer database. I wouldn't call it a real CRM, which is a customer relationship management system, but it is a customer database. And as the expert, semi-expert, the marketing team says to me, hey, do you want a job in marketing? So I'm with the company for 9 months, and I now get a job as a marketing specialist. And this was the first moment that I realized what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. I fell in love with marketing, okay? And the best part of it was I'm at this really cool company, driving really cool cars, yeah? So it's hard not to fall in love with marketing. I probably could have gone into finance. I would have said I want to be in finance for the rest of my life, but it was pure luck. What was great about Porsche is that they were starting up. They were low staffed. We only had about 100 employees then. And so now the North American headquarters has 350 employees, okay? For perspective. So 100 employees, and they need people to do stuff. My job title is Marketing Specialist, Direct Marketing. 20 years ago, direct marketing was mail. It was that junk mail that everybody hates, right? And that was my job description. There wasn't a lot of email, there wasn't social media, there wasn't banner ads, SEM, or things like that. So what was great was I could ask. I could say, hey, does anybody need help with things? And if you raised your hand and you took it, you got it. And so the Cayenne was launching that year, the new SUV for Porsche. Back then it was a very controversial topic that Porsche was going to double their inventory, double their volume of sales with an SUV, crazy SUV. So my job was to tease this campaign for about a year and a half and get the market, the 200,000 customers that had enough money to buy this car, get them excited about it. And based on the work that I did on that, they said to me, hey, do you want to launch the Carrera GT? Does anybody know what the Carrera GT is? Okay. The Carrera GT was a supercar, $500,000 supercar that they made 1,200 of, and they sold 600 in the United States. So marketing and launching a Carrera GT, something like that, is really exciting. So my job was to create these events, to take customers, potential customers to Geneva, Switzerland, to take potential customers or actual customers to the racetrack in Germany where they could watch the car being built and then they could go drive their car on a racetrack. So here I am planning events, international events. I think I'm 24 at this time, remember?
Yeah.
And I'm flying back and forth to Germany just because I said I wanted to try something new. So I'm doing events with Jerry Seinfeld, Bill Cosby, Tim Allen, things like that. And I'm getting all this operational experience in disciplines of marketing that had nothing to do with my job description. So, remember the database I mentioned? So I became an expert in that. And what happened there is they said, you've done so good for North America, we want to send you to Germany, and we want you to fix their database problem. So Porsche Deutschland and Porsche AG, which is the headquarters. So they sent me over to Germany for a year project. And personally, it's one of the worst times of my life. I was going through a divorce, and they sent me to this country where, I mentioned back then, no internet, there was internet, but it was very slow. There wasn't Facebook, it wasn't easy to connect and find friends. And the part of the country they sent me to, which is Stuttgart, Germany, is a bit notorious for people not being the friendliest, not being the most open. And it was a very lonely year, but it was an excellent year of personal growth and development and learning about the different cultures and learning about some of the challenges. And I'll talk about those in a little bit, like some of the really key things that I learned, why I didn't grow and develop and why I didn't really make friends. I had some tough lessons there. So after a year, they sent me back. And they say, like any good company of that size, we should probably not let some girl who's 24 years old manage our customer database. We should probably implement a global system called SAP. Do you guys know SAP? Okay. So we're going to implement it globally. North America's going to go first. Corinne's going to be the representative. So a global team meant the team was headquartered in Germany. Well, they're not sending me back to Germany, but they are flying me back and forth almost every week or every other week. This is the point where I realized, for me, what was really important. Don't get me wrong, I love my job, I love my career, and I think careers are important. But you at some point have to make a decision that you either live to work or work to live. And I wanted to work to live. I wanted to have my family and my friends as my priority. And at this point, with the amount of travel I was doing, it was not a priority for me, and it was very tough. So a former Porsche colleague of mine happens to call me about that same time, pure luck, and says, I've left Porsche and I've gone to this company. They're doing a startup. It's a well-funded startup. It's owned by Cox Enterprises, or Manheim, or Auto Trader. Do you guys know Cox Communications? All that, yeah? And I think you'd be great. Would you be interested? Absolutely, I would be interested. So now I've gone Porsche, and now I go, yes, I'm an excellent artist, by the way. Know your strengths and weaknesses. This is a weakness. So I end up at Manheim, and our job, they tell us basically, you guys go sit over in this building. You're not part of our company. You're not part of our company. We need you to build a website that will transact 15% of the volume of cars that currently go through auction, physical car auctions. And I think I was employee number 11. And they treated us so much like a startup. On my first day, I think I went and had to go buy my desk at Costco, okay? And this is a $5 billion company paying my paycheck. But it was such a fun and exciting environment. And by the time a year and a half in, we had 150 employees. We had launched the website. We had over 10% of the market share of the transactions going through the site. And Manheim/Cox was ecstatic. Great job, guys. You did a good job. Now we're going to roll you back into corporate, okay? So they take these 150 people and say, we hired you guys to all be disruptors and innovators. We put you in an environment where you played with beach balls while you worked and you wore sandals and shorts to work every day. Now we want you to come to a big corporate building, sit in these lovely wooden offices where you have to wear a suit, where you go to meetings where you can't really say anything in these meetings. So that was a huge cultural adjustment for me. I stayed there another 4 years, and I think I did pretty well. I was promoted to a director position, but by the time I left 4 years later, out of the 120 people that had come over, there were only about 30 left. Because at that point, some of those people realized, this is not for me, this is not what I'm looking for. So during the last few years there, it becomes really aware of me, I want to get back into international marketing. I want to be in Germany, or I want to be in Europe. No matter what, I want to be in an international company. And so I'm not a believer in this, but you heard about The Secret, I think Oprah's book club or something, that if you put it out in the universe, it's more likely to happen. So I live by this. I told everybody, anytime I went out with friends, colleagues, all I would talk about is, I really want to find a job back in Europe. Do you know anybody? Do you know anybody, anything, any of that? And I was a little aggressive, probably about it, and so much so that I even went to my own company and I said, hey, this is where I know where I want to go. I know this is a risky telling you, but is there any way you can help me? As my employer for the last 7 years. And they tried, they really did. But at the end of the day, the company at that point did not have a lot of success in the international environment. Not enough success where they could offer me a position. So, good luck again. Another different former Porsche colleague calls me and says, hey, guess what? I remember you telling me you're interested in an international position. My current company, Carestream Dental, which is used to be Kodak, but when they went bankrupt, changed the names. They need a director of marketing for Europe, Africa, Middle East, and Russia. And the job is headquartered in Germany. What do you think? Yes, yes, I'll take it. Just, what do I have to do? Give me the job. Perfect job. So, at this point, I pack up my life. I put everything I own in 3 very large suitcases. And you know those Tupperware boxes where you put Christmas lights? A few of those. Because part of the deal was I had to get over there by myself. So it wasn't a nice expat package where they paid for everything. I had to figure out how to get there, and then they gave me the job. So I packed up my whole life, and I moved to Germany. It was one of the biggest risks I've probably taken in my whole life. It's one of the scariest times in my life. Anna and Barb painfully listened to me sob through the time, but it was the best decision I ever made. So here I am, living in the world of Oktoberfest. Angela Merkel, she loves beer. I think every meeting she goes to, she has a beer. And it's a big adjustment, yeah? So even though I had lived there for 1 year before, it's different now. Now there's Facebook. Now there's expat communities. Now there's ways for me to connect with other people. So I really spent my first year understanding my new role as the director of EMER. So I have a team that lives all over the world. I have conference calls where I only understand 20% of what somebody's saying, and I have to ask over and over again, say that one more time, please. Sometimes I'm having conference calls at 10 o'clock at night, sometimes I'm having conference calls at 5 o'clock in the morning. But at the same time, I'm spending time on me, and I'm spending time on building my foundation there so that I know I can stay. I'm making friends, and I'm focusing on having a little fun, as you can see. So after about 1.5 years, 2 years, I meet a German man. I call him Jens 2.0. He happens to also be named Jens. This was during the World Cup, so as you can see, Germans very excited about the German World Cup. I think this was right after the victory. And whole new challenges come to light. So when I meet Jens, he speaks no English. And keep in mind, I haven't spoken German in probably 7 years because I had not been working in an international environment. So all of our conversations revolve around our telephones, Google Translate. You know, they're coming out with that earpiece now. That's really cool. Have you seen that? The earpiece in and somebody talks and it automatically translates it. So we're having to correct each other, and you know, after however many years we've been together, his English is much better. But the German language is a tricky one. And there's certain things I would correct him on and certain things I wouldn't. To this day, there's one thing he says that I still have not told him is wrong. Whenever he's really hot, he'll say, I'm sweatering. Instead of sweating, I can't tell him it's wrong. It's just so cute. So, it's you know, and the German language is not the prettiest language. We all know that. I mean, Anna thinks it's beautiful.
I do.
But, and you guys have probably seen this video. I love this video, so I'm just going to play it one more time if you haven't seen it.
Hippopotam.
Hippopotamus.
Ippopotamo. Ippopotamo. Pferd.
A little delay.
Sex.
Sex.
Sesso. Sexo. Geschlechtsverkehr.
Pardon.
Sorry.
Scusa. Pardon. Entschuldigung.
Hospital.
Hospital.
Ospitale. Hospital. Krankenhaus.
Centurion.
Cinderella.
Cenerentola. Cenicienta. Aschenputtel.
Canary.
Canary.
Canario. Canario. Kanarienvogel.
There's a lot of things out there like that. So it's not the prettiest language, but it is one of the most practical languages, and it's very pragmatic. Who in here studies German? Okay, that's pretty good. Okay, so what I love about it is if you know a certain amount of nouns and you know a certain amount of vocabulary, the way they combine words, they combine them, you can figure out what it means. So this is a great video that I think does a good job highlighting that.
German words are a little like chemical elements, so when you stick to...
Let's see if I can fix this delay real quick.
German words are a little like chemical elements, so when you stick two of them together, you can get something entirely new. Put a hand and a shoe together and you get a Handschuh or a glove. True story. How about if you take the adjective cool or kühl and add it to wardrobe or Schrank? Kühlschrank. Any guesses? Yeah, that's a fridge, or literally a cool wardrobe. That all makes perfect sense, but we also have some more abstract compound nouns. Take Fremdscham and Kummerspeck, for example. If you break these into their component parts, you may be able to guess what they mean. Fremdscham is foreign shame, or the vicarious embarrassment you feel when observing someone making a fool of him or herself. Kummerspeck is misery bacon, and is the extra few layers one acquires as a consequence of comfort eating. And then you get the really obscure ones, like cardboard nose and donkey bridge, which are the literal translations of Pappnase and Eselsbrücke. So what do you think those mean?
Any of the German students want to take a guess? Okay. Cardboard nose is, it's like the clown noses that they wear, is literally what they're doing. So it's slang for calling somebody an idiot. That's what if you want to call somebody an idiot in German, call them cardboard nose. Eselbrücke is, Eselbrücke, did I say it right?
Yeah.
Is, it means being able, using something to help remind you of something else. And the concept comes from the belief that donkeys are not very intelligent. And therefore, for them to remember to go over a bridge, the bridge has to be a donkey bridge. It has to be very, very small and short so that they can remember how to get over it. So if you say you need an Eselbrücke, it means you need something to help you remember how you do something. So not only did my new boyfriend and I have challenges with the German language and the English language, we had major cultural differences in how we were raised, how our families, things that we worked on together, just figuring each other out. And one of the funniest ones for me is Krampus. Does anybody know who Krampus is? Krampus, remember Krampus is? Krampus is scary. Krampus is really scary. So you guys know Elf on the Shelf? Everybody has Elf on the Shelf. So Elf on the Shelf, the concept is basically scaring your children into behaving, right? So the Elf on the Shelf is going to tell Santa that you've been bad. Well, Germans have mastered this concept of scaring your children into behaving. 2,000 years ago, they came up with this creature. He's like a goat demon sort of something, okay? And the concept is Krampus comes at Christmas with St. Nicholas. Krampus and St. Nicholas are buddies. They only come together. They come to your house and they tell the child whether they've been bad or good. And if they've been good, St. Nicholas gives them gifts. And if they've been bad, Krampus puts them in the little bag, beats them with the stick, and eats them. Can you imagine being told that when you're 5 years old? And Jens is telling me the story like it's just normal. It's an everyday thing. So I asked him, I said, is this really how it works? And he said, yeah, what happens is the neighbors usually that don't have kids, they'll get dressed up and they come over and they do it. And I said, did you ever get told you were bad? And he said, oh yeah, once or twice you get told you're bad. And I'm like, what happens? And he says, well, he takes the little stick and he kind of hits you with it a few times. It doesn't really hurt. But you're so scared, you're just weeping. You're just freaking out. And he's like, and then you behave for a couple months and you still get Christmas gifts. It's not a big deal, Corinne. And I'm thinking, that's a really horrible way to treat your children. So last year I thought, I've got a 5-year-old nephew. He's being a little twerp. And I thought, it was just he and I, so I told him the story of Krampus. And he just stared at me like this the whole time. And then I showed him that picture. And then my sister called me the next night. She says, thanks, Corinne. Thank you for that. He didn't sleep. He told Mom that Krampus was coming again. So there's other things too, silly things that we don't think about. Like, I'm an American. I like Diet Coke. I like an ice cold beverage in the morning. And Germans, they're very scientific, engineer-type people. You know, stereotypes, right? But stereotypes exist for a reason. They're very black and white, but from a superstition level, they have stronger superstitions than anybody I've ever met, any other culture I've ever met. We even had this conversation today. So I like to have an ice cold Diet Coke in the morning. Germans genuinely believe that will make you sick. Okay? If they see me drinking something cold in the morning, I get a look. You're going to get worms in your stomach. No scientific proof, right? 40 years I've been drinking Diet Coke every morning. Somehow I'm still alive. Socks.
In your stomach.
Or I'm sure I have worms in my stomach. You cannot walk around without socks on. Even in your own home, you will definitely get sick. And heaven forbid a fan or any sort of air blows directly on you. That will make you sick. Germs don't make you sick. Air makes you sick. Okay? So his family, they look at me like I'm absolutely crazy. So basically, a lot of our conversations end with my conversations end with his parents. I'm an American. My DNA is different. This is just how I do it. Because I just can't keep arguing about it. Another one is birthdays. Germans take birthdays very seriously, which I really like and respect. I think that's really nice. They go out of their way, they drive a long distance to celebrate people's birthdays. But they will not celebrate or say happy birthday before your birthday. It's very, very bad luck. So recently I wanted to celebrate my 40th with my friends and family on a Saturday. The Saturday before my birthday on Tuesday. And there was a festival, a beer festival of course. So I wanted to invite everybody to the beer festival. And I remember FaceTiming with his mom to invite her. And I said, oh yeah, it's the Saturday before. And she looked at me like I had 4 heads. What? No, we can't. No, we can't do that. You can't do that, Greg. Well, I'm inviting 40 people. I'm doing it. She came. She had a great time. She did not wish me a happy birthday. She did not give me a gift. She waited until Tuesday. She called me at midnight on Tuesday, and she mailed my gift to me. This is how serious they take it. So, there are lots of good things about Germany, and because I've lived there 5 years, I probably talk really, really positive about it. There's a lot of great things about America. There's a lot of great things about lots of countries. There's benefits and negatives in both situations. And in moving to another country, you will have to give up some things. One thing Americans don't realize is you guys have freedom beyond any other country I've seen so far, yeah? You guys may complain, the political system, all the stuff that's wrong, but there are still a lot of really great things here. So I'm just gonna go through some stuff that I've had to say goodbye to, but also some of the cool stuff that I get that may be a little bit different. So, when I lived here, I had all these great shoes. They were so nice. I had to get rid of all of them. So now I wear very practical wedges because all the roads are cobblestone and you have to walk everywhere. It's like you don't do a lot of driving. So these are extremely impractical. So I've given up my cute shoes, but I get to layer. I get to wear a lot of different types of clothing. So German weather is very tricky. Germans say, they have a saying, there's no such thing as bad weather, just bad clothing. So every day I wake up and I think about, it could snow in the morning and in the afternoon it could be rather hot. How can I prepare my day? And you always have an umbrella wherever you go. Ice cold drinks. I mentioned that whole thing about trying to drink. I always figure out how to get my ice cold drink, but it's almost impossible to get it out in public. They, for some reason, serve their water, their soda, basically lukewarm, and getting ice cubes almost impossible. But they do manage to get ice cold beer, and some of the best beers in the world, which you guys probably already know that, right? Another thing we Americans are great at is bending the rules, breaking the rules a little bit. That's a no-go in Germany, absolute no-go. I have stood, I've taken videos of it, at a light, at a street, with no cars, with the red man, for 2 minutes. And you have 10 people who will not move, will not cross the road. You just do not break rules. And I think Anna told me one year, when we were having a heavy debate about this, that you have so many millions of people living in a country the size of Alabama.
Yes, just about.
Yeah, and you've got all these millions of people living in a country the size of Alabama. You have to have some sort of order, right? And so order is a lot more important. And so breaking rules, no go. But you do get unlimited speed limit on the Autobahn. There is nothing like going 120 miles an hour on your way to work. Nothing like it. Say goodbye to your money. Taxes are a bit extreme in Germany, but the cost of living is a lot better. So it kind of evens out, but it does hurt when you get half of your paycheck at the end of the day. But you also get a really good retirement. You get unbelievable health care. So I think I was only there a year, and I had a little bit of a medical emergency, and I ended up in the emergency room. And the nurse was so nice. He loved that I was from America. He wanted to talk to me and everything after I woke up. And he says to me, he says, do you know how much this whole thing is going to cost you? And keep in mind, I've been in there for like 24 hours. I've seen 2 specialists. It's been an intense day. And I go, I don't know what. And he's like, nothing. Nothing. He was so proud to tell me as an American, I'm not going to pay anything for my health care. And the living wage, yeah? So tipping is not really a thing as much over in Europe and in Germany specifically. In France, no tipping, but in Germany, you may give what they call Trinkgeld, which is just a little bit of extra money. So if it's like 9 euros, you might give them 10. If it's, 15, 20, you might give them 17. And the reason is that everybody makes a good living wage. There's not such a disparity between the wealthy and the poor, and you don't have a lot of poverty, which is definitely nice. So you get what you pay for. It's a little bit more of a socialist economy. Another aspect of this socialist economy is maternity leave. I have not taken advantage of this, but I know the benefit is, so in America, it's 12 weeks with FHLA, and there's no wages. In Germany, you get 14 months, and you get 65% of your salary during that 14 months. And what's great about that 14 months is you can split it. Let's say your husband wants to take 2 of those months, and you take 12, or your partner, and vice versa. Or you can do 7 and 7. It doesn't matter, yeah? But this sounds great, right? Anybody think this sounds great? It has a downside. So overall, women are only 15% of senior roles in Germany. And I genuinely believe, Anna would agree, I think a lot of people would believe there's a cause and effect here. And I can, this number of 60% of German businesses have no women in senior management. Because smaller businesses, it's a really big risk to hiring a woman who may or may not go on maternity leave, because it could put them out of business. And I actually interviewed for a small company years ago when I was in that putting out in the universe that I wanted to go to Europe. And the guy was really nice. He said, legally I shouldn't tell you this. He said, but I need to know, are you going to have kids? And I was like, yeah, that sounds like totally legal. And he said, but you know, if you do, it could put me out of business. I have 5 employees or 6 employees, and if one's gone and I have to pay you, and then I have to get another employee. And so it limits women from being promoted, it limits women from excelling in their career. So I would say there's got to be somewhere better in the middle here. This is just my opinion, by the way. So say goodbye to being lazy. Germans hate laziness. You know, they are very critical of you if they see you being lazy or just not doing things. This is a big fight with my boyfriend as well, too. Because I'm all about a Saturday or a Sunday on the sofa and not doing anything. But say hello to 6 weeks vacation. 6 weeks paid vacation, and you're in one of the best parts of the world to see all the great things. Say goodbye to big refrigerators. I love bringing Germans over here into big houses. And they always open the fridge first. That's the first thing they do. But here's my first fridge. My current one is a little bigger than this, but not much. But say hello to, you're always eating extremely fresh food, yeah? Your meat is so fresh. Actually, the meat is so fresh that one of the most popular dishes over there, that Jens eats all the time, is raw pork. Yeah, raw pork on white bread with raw onions and salt and pepper. It's called Mettwurst. He loves it, they love it. And I asked about that, and I'm like, but in America we can't eat raw pork, it's trichinosis. And they do say getting trichinosis would be like winning the lottery, but still risky. Don't go eat raw pork, okay? But in Germany, everything's so much closer together and the food is just much fresher that you're getting your meat directly from the butcher. And so people have no qualms, no issues with eating raw pork. And I think, like, I go to the grocery store 2 or 3 times a week, and there's like a grocery store on every corner. So you don't go like in America, you go and you buy your groceries for the week. You walk out with a huge cart. In Germany, you go 2 little bags, and you buy your groceries for the next day or so. So, where does that put me now? So 4 years at Carestream Dental. Now I am the global head of marketing for Hilti. So about 1.5 years ago, a recruiter called me and said, hey, what do you think about working for Hilti? And coming from the world of Porsche, I really like the strength of the brand. So I don't know if Hilti's as popular of a brand in America, but in Europe it's an extremely popular brand. So like power drills in Europe are actually called Hiltis. They'll be like, hey, give me the Hilti. Kind of like we say, can I have a Kleenex instead of a tissue? And I was definitely attracted to the idea of working for another really strong brand with high quality products. And so I said that would be great. Also, it was another situation where they wanted it to feel like a startup. They realized that Hilti is a $5 billion company, and they needed to transform digitally. So they founded a digital unit. And the whole purpose of that digital unit is about engaging with our customers in a digital way. And for me, that sounded really, really exciting. So I joined Hilti about 1 year and 2 months ago, and who would not want to play with power tools all the time? What was that? Literally, they basically stuck us in a room of concrete and gave us very little instruction, which I was surprised at, and then power tools. And they're a really great product. So here I am in this very, very multicultural team, more so, even more so than my last team at Kirsten Dental. This group here is the digital unit. They represent 6 continents, 20 countries, 15 languages, and they all have very diverse backgrounds and personalities, which makes working together very challenging, but also very rewarding and productive and fun. Oh, sorry. So, what do you guys think Europeans think about Americans? What are some of the stereotypes? Loud. Yeah. Come on, there's a lot more. Yes, we like to eat. And we don't like healthy food. That's what they all think. We just don't like healthy food. Anything else? I hear loud, lazy, fat, not very healthy. Monolingual. Yeah.
Fast-paced.
What?
Very fast-paced.
Fast-paced, yeah. It's true. We don't take vacation. We don't slow down, relax, work hard, play hard. I love this image. I don't agree with this. Just to clarify, I don't agree with this. It's a stereotype, but this is what they envision. And like when I first started dating Jens, they grow up watching Western movies. They grow up watching movies about the Wild Wild West, and he thinks everybody's a cowboy. Like he's gonna come over and everybody's wearing boots and hats, and, you know. That's not how it works. But we all have stereotypes of different countries, of different people that we work with, yeah? But the most important thing is not just that the stereotypes exist, but how do we get the best out of each group and understanding the culture that we're going to work in. So for me, from a culture perspective, I was put into multiple situations that were completely new for me. And so, for example, I may not agree with them, so I have to do business in the Middle East. Some of my first meetings in Dubai, I was informed ahead of time how I would be greeted by men, and how I should be greeted by the men, and how I should greet them. Don't necessarily agree with it, but at least being able to understand why they do it, how they do it, and be prepared for how I'm going to handle myself. Dealing with a man who I'm about to sell millions of dollars of product to but won't shake my hand really helped me, right? And I love this video because it talks about the importance of understanding the culture that you're going to be working in, or the culture, the people that you're going to be interacting with.
In some Asian cities, it's considered acceptable for a commuter to fall asleep on the shoulder of a stranger. In New York, it's quite a different story. Of course, we can always adapt. We're the global bank that never underestimates the importance of local knowledge. HSBC, the world's local bank.
The English believe it's a slur on your host's food if you don't clear your plate. Whereas the Chinese feel you're questioning their generosity if you do. At HSBC, we never underestimate the importance of local knowledge. Which is why we have local banks staffed by local people in over 80 countries across the globe. HSBC, the world's local bank. Taiwan, you're expected to buy everyone a drink. However, in Japan, it's traditional to buy your playing partners expensive gifts.
Same hole.
At HSBC, we never underestimate the importance of local knowledge. HSBC, the world's local bank.
Great marketing. So there's lots of good and different cultural differences. There's different things that different people bring to the table, but I talked about that Dubai example, but there's also other things that are kind of fun. Like whenever I do business in the Nordics, they like to start every meeting with a shot of alcohol. That's the way that they greet you, and you cannot start talking about money or any sort of transaction before you drink this shot. Now, the shot actually tastes terrible. I wish it was tasted a little better, but it's still an interesting way to start doing business. So understanding these cultural differences before you go into the meetings or as you're developing is a really great way of making sure that you're getting the most out of your interactions with people. But there's good things too that the cultural differences can bring to the table. So as an American, we talked about some of the different things that people view us as. Well, another one is they view us as a little bit informal and sometimes superficial. And the reason they view us that way is we say, "How are you?" But we don't really mean "How are you," do we? We walk by and we say, "How are you doing?" And all you want that person to say is "good," and to keep going, yeah? If you say that in Germany to somebody, you're going to get a 5-minute discussion about what their kid had for breakfast and wasn't feeling very well and what they did over the weekend. And all you really wanted to hear was "good, good." So, but that informality can be a good thing. So in the teams that I've lead in Germany is very formal. But I've gotten a reputation for being somebody that people can come to and easily talk to. I don't use last names with people. In Germany, in most companies, interactions still happen at a last name level. Even with people your own age. It's not an older, it's not a seniority thing. All business will be done at last name. I always call people by their first name. I'm very comfortable just walking into a meeting and having a conversation. And that sort of culture trickles down and people appreciate it. So we all bring something different to the table and we have to understand that. And inclusion, right? So leveraging those different things. I love this. Diversity and independence are important because the best decisions are the product of disagreement, right? And product of discussion, contest, not consensus or compromise. And I'm sure you guys have those sort of situations. I remember in college working groups, you still have to do teamwork. And yeah, I'm sure you see that. That sometimes it's a very frustrating process because people have different backgrounds, people have different points of view. But 9 times out of 10, you come out of there with something better than what you had before. And I like this. It's kind of a funny way of describing that we all bring something good to the table. We just have to appreciate it, right? We all want the Englishmen to be our police officers. We definitely don't want the Germans to be our police officers. And we don't want the Englishmen to be our cooks, right? Stereotypes, of course, but it's a good example. So I've been talking for the last 30, 40 minutes about working in an international environment, cultural differences, challenges, good and bad. Is this something that interests you guys? Is this something that you guys want to do? So how do you start? I wish 20 years ago, the technology that exists today existed then. I literally spent 10 minutes just to kind of get some examples of if I were in your shoes today and I wanted to do what I do now, what would I do? Oh, that's interesting. Let me just fix that real quick. And in that 10 minutes, I typed the word global internship. And up came all of these, and global internship in Germany. Yeah, you could change that from Germany to Italy, to Spain, to whatever country, whatever part of the world interests you, yeah? But just in Germany, this was page 1. I only did the screen print of page 1. And what's happening in the world, in the business world, is people want global teams, where their headquarters are. And by that, what that means is they want teams of people that speak English. Native English is highly valued. It's a little bit, blinders, but think about it. That is one of the biggest benefits you guys have. The majority of you in the room are native English speakers. And when you Google these, or LinkedIn these, you'll see the job postings are in English, even though the jobs are in Germany. They're looking for people that speak English. I've lived in Germany for 5.5 years. Neither of my jobs required that I speak German. I don't speak German at all at work. Now, did they help me get the job? Yes. I highly recommend learning a language. I highly recommend that as a competitive advantage when you are putting yourself out there. But you don't need it. Another thing is know your value. This is another thing I wish existed back then. So just for fun, I put in one of my first positions at Porsche, and I did not make that amount of money 20 years ago. Wish I did. But that's how easy it is. Now, it's not an exact number. I think we all know that this is just for reference, but it gives you an idea of how you can negotiate when you do go in. So, and you have to take into other things like cost of living, what part of the world you're going to be living in. So for example, here's the German word for intern is Praktikant, yeah? And so I put in just to see what sort of salaries for interns. If you were to leave university and look for a job at BMW as an intern in Munich, this would be the amount of money that you could expect to earn per month. All this information, literally like less than 10 minutes to find. I like Glassdoor, but I'm sure there's lots of other sites that you can use as well. And last but not least, look on LinkedIn and find people that have the job title of what you want, or work for the type of company that you want to work for. I think earlier, like half of the room raised their hand and said they didn't know what they want to do, which is awesome. You're already way ahead of where I was back then. So look for the type of people and the type of companies that you want to work for, and reach out to them. Write them a message. You'll be surprised how much people want to help you, especially like me, because Anna knows this. I was very frustrated in college because I felt like there was nothing for me. Nobody helped. So if somebody reaches out to me, I'm very happy to respond and try to give them whatever worthless advice or good advice I can give them. I try to help. So you'll be surprised how many people will appreciate that you took the time to write them and will respond to you. So for me, I said to myself at the beginning of this, if I could go back in 20 years ago and tell myself something, what would I tell myself? And the good news is, after I wrote it all down, it wasn't rocket science. Did anybody see the Elon Musk interview recently? A reporter was giving him a hard time about blowing up a few rockets before he had a successful one, and he just looked at the guy and said, "Come on, it is rocket science. Give me a break." This is not rocket science, right? I think if you think back to some of the stuff I was talking about, it's really about connecting, networking. I cannot describe the value of that enough. I mean, every job I got, except for Hilti so far, was through somebody I knew. It was not necessarily from searching for the job and finding it online. Be proactive. Ask. There's no harm in asking. I love this quote. Only 2 elements of success: timing and your ability to act. I like to add luck in there too. But learn new things. I'm 20 years out of school, and I'm still every day learning, especially when it comes to digital technologies. They change so frequently. You will never stop learning, and if you do, life is pretty boring. Take responsibility. Own things. Become the expert. Say, I will do this. I want this. I want to be the expert in it. I want to own it. That will give you so much of a value in a business. People really admire and respect that. And take risks. Calculated risks. Do anything crazy, but risks are really important. You know, when I packed up my life and moved to Germany, that was a huge risk. Inclusion and understanding. This one I was really bad at for a long time, quite frankly. This has really come to me in the last few years living in Europe, how important it is in working, and if you want to work in a global environment, you've got to figure out how to include people that are different than you, people that may think differently than you. Even those guys that won't shake my hand in Saudi Arabia, I need them, right? So that's critical. Don't underestimate the importance of culture. Culture eats strategy for breakfast. And this is something that a lot of companies do. Be self-aware. Know your strengths and your weaknesses. Everybody has weaknesses. It's not a bad thing. But it comes back to that inclusion. You want to find somebody that complements your weaknesses. And be who you are. And at the end of the day, that won't change. Be who you are. Find out what's important to you. I talked about how my personal life, my family, my friends are important to me. Yes, I want a successful career, but I will put those other things first. And have mentors and people you rely on for solid advice. I would say in my life I've got about somewhere between 8 and 10 of those. Anna being one of them, Barb being one of them. People that I know I can pick up the phone and bounce ideas off of and ask for help. So I think we've got a little bit of time left
We do?
for questions.
I would just like to mention that she's getting married in June in the castle in Germany. You know, that's not nothing. That's pretty nice.
That's not nothing. Yes, I'm marrying the Institute.
You guys have questions for Corinne?
What was the hardest part about learning another language? Everything. German is a tough language. The Der die das, for me, the grammar was really, really hard. And then I think, you know, it's like a muscle. If you don't practice it regularly, if you don't use it regularly, it disappears. That was really hard. Say that one more time.
Did you ever use the program that Germany has, or is there a non-native German speaker? Germany will pay for you to go to school in Germany?
They didn't have it back then. That's a long time. I remember when I graduated. But they have it now, and I've been talking to my sister about it a lot for my nephew. So what he's talking about is, you guys, you're already in university here, but you could actually go to university in Germany for free. All foreign students, if you can get into the university there, you get free education. It's amazing.
And
It's
now we
great.
can even do it in English because a lot of the programs in Germany are in English now.
So where I live in Stuttgart, the University of Stuttgart, I have some friends that study there, and all their classes are, a girlfriend of mine, she's from Brazil. She doesn't speak very good English or German, but her classes are in English for engineering.
It's a real opportunity, even for medicine. The medical school is free.
Oh yeah, yeah. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.